Test 1. Test 2. I will go.
On the record.
Okay, we're at the Iowa State panel. Today is January the 27th, 2014. We're at the Local 90 Union Hall. The Union Committee will be Frisbee,
Rosenthal,
Micah.
For the company's Margrave.
Leonard.
Irvin.
This looks to be, we're going to hear case number 1. Both parties are ready and ready to present. Looks to be a company filing. We'll hear from United Parcel Service. Actually, let me take that back. It looks to be a union point of order. Is that correct?
Correct.
That
is correct.
He did call one at the local hearing?
Yes, he did.
Okay, we'll hear from the union.
Okay. This is a union point of order. Matt Ballard for the union. This termination is improper due to being untimely. The company did not issue the termination letter within 10 days of knowledge of the event. I put a timeline of the events in here. Sunday, January 5th, day 1, there's an incident in the parking lot involving Michelle Mollica and Linda Bates. Takes place and management is informed of the incident.
Yeah, we got a situation. I'm off the clock, so you don't have to worry about paying me for anything, right? Sunday, I told you she pulled next to me. She normally doesn't park there. She did it this morning. She's parked in the spot I normally park. There's only one spot next to her. I came inside and parked again. Dan, the woman scares me.
Security came down
and told me I have to park next to her.
On Tuesday, January 7th, which is day 3, Human Resources Manager Mike Arndt asked Michelle Mollica to write a statement about the incident.
So right now, what I'm hearing,
She's playing a game.
okay,
Dan, you may not realize this. She's very mean.
I understand that.
And
what I'm going to ask you to do, all right, and we're going to try to move forward with this, is just take a deep breath. You're really.
I've had a year of this, I know.
I know,
It's been going on for a year.
You know, take a deep breath, clean your breath. Okay, so what you're telling me right now is that, from what I'm hearing, you think that she is trying to create a hostile work environment and harass and intimidate you in the workplace.
I am saying that, yes.
That's your perception.
That is my perception.
Okay, then what I would like you to do is I'd like you to first just get your composure. I'd like you to write a statement to me, put it on paper, that you feel that she is creating a hostile work environment against you and she is harassing you by the things that she's doing.
Thank you for writing something up in regards to her. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so just go ahead and write something up, give it to me and put it on paper. I have a meeting scheduled for today with Human Resources, and it's my obligation to provide a safe work environment for everybody, and it's obvious. And yeah, I'll tell you where I'm at, Michelle. I personally, you know, this shit she's doing, if it was me, I would just blow it off.
Honey, I can't blow it off.
I
It's
get that.
On Wednesday, January 8th, 2014, day 4, Michelle returns a 4-page statement to Mike Arndt.
Hi, Mike.
On Thursday, January 9th, day 5, day sort manager Dan Kelly asked Linda Bates to write out a statement. Linda completes and returns a 4-page statement on that same day. Tuesday, January 14th, 2014, day 10, meeting takes place with Michelle, Linda, Matt Ballard, Mike Arndt, Joe Brown, and Dan Kelly present. It was stated at that meeting by the company that we were here to the most recent ruckus in the parking lot. We were both offered the opportunity to move to different shifts. That attempted settlement by the company was rejected. Both Michelle and Linda were informed they were being terminated. The company collected their ID cards and escorted them from the property. On Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014, which would be day 18, scheduled local level hearing took place for both Linda and Michelle separately that day at the Union Hall. I asked the company if there was a termination letter issued for either one yet, and Joe Brown responded no. I informed him at that point that both terminations were untimely and that I would be calling a procedural point of order in both cases. He acknowledged this. He then contacted Amber Shue in St. Louis, and a termination letter was composed and sent to Joe by email. He forwarded them to me, and I requested I print him a copy, which I did. He then proceeded to read the letters at the local level hearing, after which I formally called the point of order, heard the point of order, and agreed that it would be heard at the state panel, and agreed to hear the facts of the case. Since this termination before you is untimely, we ask you to uphold the point of order, remove the discipline, and make the grievant whole for all lost pay and benefits, including pay that would have been received, health and welfare contributions, credit towards accrued vacation and pension hours, credits for all days of missed work due to this improper termination. We'll rest with the right to rebut.
Company presentation.
Joe Brown, in response to the point of order, we don't believe the letter is untimely. It happened within 10 days of the event. The day they were terminated was January 14th, and we had 10 days to issue a letter, which we did. That's our case.
Union rebuttal.
We believe the contract is specific that all terminations must be by a proper written notice. I believe you have the point of order and we'll rest.
Company rebuttal.
You have the case.
Questions to the committee. Can you explain your position again?
The grievance was terminated on January 14th, and because of that, we issued the letter within 10 days, as stated in the contract, and we gave them the letter on the day of the 22nd, which was 10 days from the termination date of the 14th.
So your day of action was the 14th.
That is correct.
Okay. I don't have anything else, do you?
No.
Well, I gotta go. All right, Joe, you're saying, when are you saying your date of knowledge was?
January 14th. That's when they were terminated.
Okay, is that what I asked you?
You said date of knowledge.
Yeah, of the incident.
We had knowledge of something that took place on January 5th.
Okay, well, when did you know that you had enough information to terminate them?
When I sat down with them on January 14th.
Okay, on these statements that they wrote on the 7th and 8th, that wasn't enough?
It's after we had the meeting with them to get more information about what was taking place when we made the decision.
Okay, so on the hearing, on the 14th, there was more information that came out versus what was the 7th and the 8th.
That is correct.
Okay, can you tell us what
Yeah.
that was?
The information was in both cases, both grievance, we allowed them to read both of the complaints against each other, and then they proceeded to talk about that the one person's lying over the other one. Well, she forgot about this. There was issues brought up about being struck in the workplace back on July 23rd. And there was other issues that were brought up that were outside the scope of the write-ups that were provided.
Okay, so you're saying on the 14th there was an addition of information that was really what took you to termination outside of the statements on the 7th and the 8th?
Right. It was there, even in the meeting itself, both of them were in disagreement. When one was talking, the other would interrupt, and it happened in both cases, and it was just another clear-cut example that these two employees cannot get along, even in a meeting structured as what we had.
Okay. And
Dan, sometimes you have to be taken out of a meeting to calm down.
No,
So that's erroneous by the union.
that would be a lie, yes.
Matt, would you like to elaborate?
Yes, it was with an employee, weighs all of 90 pounds, scoliosis. We had a local level hearing up in the meeting, the safety room. We're up there, get into the hearing on the attendance and some other issues that she's having with the company trying to force her out the door. She's been in front of this panel at that local level hearing. Dan became agitated, started standing up from his chair, yelling, screaming. Joe trying to tell him to calm down, wouldn't calm down. We finally broke so we could go our separate ways. Me so I can console her from her crying, Joe so we could try to calm Dan down. Finally, Joe and I got back together, and Joe says, I can't calm him down. We can't put him back in that room together. We're done for the night. So it's not a lie, it's the truth. You can get Joe's recollection on it, but that is what I'm referring to.
Joe, do you remember that day?
Yeah, I do.
Was Dan upset that day?
He was excited.
Matt, when are you saying that the data knowledge was that they should have generated the 10 days off of?
The January 5th.
Okay, well, tell us what happened in the 5th that they were terminated for.
The incident took place on the 5th.
Yeah,
Michelle parked in the
I got it.
parking lot.
Okay.
Linda pulled up close to her car so that Michelle could not get out of her car. Michelle then moved her car out of that parking spot to a different parking area so that she could exit the vehicle without making contact with Linda's car. Security came. Linda made a complaint that Michelle left the parking spot to security. Security came and told Michelle that she couldn't park in that spot.
Actually, that was management that told her that.
Okay.
Management told her she couldn't park there.
Okay.
You can't park on the inside.
I'm threatened by this woman. I'm sorry. I'll just wait and come in late every day and then let everybody else fill it up then. Can we talk about this?
And that's what led to the statements being written.
Okay, well,
turned
I'm
into the
asking,
company.
what happened on the incident that we should have fired somebody for on that day, on the 5th?
I don't believe anything happened on the 5th that anybody should have been fired for.
Okay. That's exactly why we're here. So what happened on the 14th, Joe, that said the company I should terminate these people?
Because we have done policy reviews with both these employees numerous times.
Okay.
And as we sat there talking about and reading the write-ups in place, and they're part of the case, from both employees, they began to bicker at each other and saying that this is not true, this didn't happen, I didn't do any of these things. There's a lot of tears shed that day and a lot of accusations outside of that, well, she filed a lawsuit against me, and it just went on. And at that point, I talked to both of them and offered them an opportunity, say, look, you two cannot work together. You need to go to different shifts, is what we offered them to do. And we offered them to go to different shifts by seniority. One person opted to go that way. The other person says, nope, I'm not moving. And I said, the current shift is not going to work for either of you. We need a mutual agreement, or we're going to follow the guidelines of the policy that states that continued violations can and will lead up to discharge. That's what we did.
That's all I got.
So what you're saying then, you didn't fire them for what they wrote in the statements, you fired them for what they did in the meeting?
Well, I mean, their statements led up to their behavior in the meeting.
Okay. You need to just answer my question, because something happened on the 5th,
Mhm.
and they gave UPS management details of what happened that night, correct?
Mhm.
Then they write statements. I'm
Mhm.
assuming that somebody from UPS got the statements on the 8th. So you're told on the 5th, they give you statements on the 8th. So you're saying until they go in the meeting and start bickering, tears, lawsuits, and an opportunity to move, did you determine to fire them?
Yes.
So my question is, did you fire them for what happened on the 5th, or did you fire them for their behavior when you met on the 14th?
The behavior of the 14th.
Somebody have a copy of the term letter? Dan, sometimes you have to be taken out of a meeting to calm down,
No,
so that's erroneous by the union.
that would be a lie, yes.
Is it in your exhibits, Joe? Is it in this?
Yeah, it's exhibit number 1 in my packet. Yeah, right there.
What, I guess, Al just asked you that the 14th was the day you decided to fire him.
Yes.
Everything they've done up prior to the 14th had nothing to do with the termination.
All that did was support the behavior they continue to exhibit on the 14th.
I guess, what did they do in that meeting that was a cardinal sin?
Well, they continue to violate the policy. In the policy, in the second line of it, it states, in order to maintain a positive work environment, all employees must treat each other with courtesy, consideration, and professionalism. That doesn't happen when these two are together.
Let me ask you, go to Article 17. Were they dishonest?
No.
Were they drinking or under the influence of alcoholic beverage?
No.
Possession of drugs?
No.
I mean, any of these things listed did they do?
17I, serious offenses, violating the workplace and anti-harassment policy.
Where does it say that in the contract?
Where does 17I is encompassing this workplace violence issue and anti-harassment.
Did they threaten each other in the meeting?
Well, legal action, one of them did.
So if I say I'm going to sue you, you can fire me?
No. It's the behavior that was exhibited by the two grievance.
That's all.
Any further questions? Hearing none, excuse the party.
On the record.
Okay, in executive session, the committee has decided to hold your point of order in abeyance and hear the facts of the case.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, do you have any?
I do have handouts now.
Joe? I got them on already. All right, everybody has it.
I need one of these.
Yeah.
I need the extras back here. Look at one of those.
Any other handouts?
I think that's it. I need those back
I'm bringing them right now.
so I can give Joe his copy. It's not as bad as it looks.
Any other handouts? Party's ready.
Okay, let me know when parties are ready to present their cases.
Company's ready.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready, Matt.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. No. This one was that. That one was correct. This first one was. No.
Correct me afterwards. Yeah, he's ready.
Let's go on the record.
On the record.
Okay, we're back on the record in case number 1. We're in presentation. The committees remain the same. We'll hear from United Parcel Service in regards to the termination in case number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe Brown for the company. Seated to my right is Security Supervisor Andrew Wood, and to his right is Sort Manager Dan Kelly. Michelle Mullica was a part-time employee on the Des Moines Day Sort. On January 14, 2014, Michelle's employment was terminated pursuant to Article 17I, other serious offenses of the Central Region of Teamsters UPS Supplemental Agreement for violating the workplace violence and anti-harassment policy. Exhibit number 1 is a copy of the termination letter I'd like to read in the record at this time. It's dated January 22, 2014, to Michelle Mullica. Dear Michelle, this official letter of discharge issued to Michelle Mullica. Your employment with UPS is terminated effective January 14th pursuant to Article 17I, other serious offenses. The Central Region of Teamsters UPS Supplemental Agreement. Sincerely, Tanner Kane. Michelle Mullica continued to violate the anti-harassment policy after being terminated on July 23rd. That termination was reduced to a suspension. In addition, the policy was reviewed with Michelle upon her return to work on July 31st, 2013. Exhibit number 2 is a copy of that policy. I'll leave it for your review. The facts of the case were as follows. On January 5th, 2014, a fellow coworker, Linda Bates, filed a complaint against Michelle. Excuse me. Exhibit number 3 is a copy of Michelle's employee record documenting that complaint. I'd like to direct the panel's attention to, and at this time it states on January 5th complaint from Linda Bates. On exhibit number 3, it says, I talked with Michelle regarding a concern voiced by Linda Bates. It's identified here as LB. I communicated that both parties need to work and not talk to each other and not to violate each other's physical space. This will be with the shop steward, Brian Moisa, which is identified to the far right with initials BM, and then Dan Kelly was the manager, RTS by Michelle. On January 8, 2014, Linda Bates filed a 4-page complaint against Michelle. Exhibit 4 is a copy of that complaint. I'd like to now read that into the record. It begins, to whom it may concern. I came to the Dixon facility approximately 4 years ago. I worked in trucks the first year, been in smalls the last 3 years. When I first started to get my numbers up there, it started to be issues with Sandy Pierce. The games and tattling, I told her to grow up. She filed harassment against me. It's been nonstop since I've watched all the time. Her and Chris Peak even got together once and said I had thrown boxes at them in a scanner. I was told to just come back to work, to ignore it and do my job. Sandy Pierce went so far as to go outbound to enlist people to go to the HR and complain about me. Between the gossip and the tattling and complaining about me, I have lost any friends that I have had down there. Now, the Michelle Mullica thing started over the fact that she thinks I was taking too many envelopes about a year ago. One time, she was escorted out of Smalls and put on another belt because of her temper. The next thing with the mat started. I went over to my position on the secondary. I got a mat to put it in place, something everyone else does. I wasn't in her space either. She flew off the handle, started calling me a bitch and yelling to get my supervisor over there. I went upstairs to complain, and as a result, she and I were temporarily fired until further investigation. After 2 days, I was brought back with pay. She was fired and had to go to state to get her job back. At that time, she told them I had smacked her hands, which I didn't. She grabbed the mat out of mine. She was brought back without pay. Needless to say, she was angry. She was outright back at Smalls. HR and security told me they didn't think she would be. I've been paying for it ever since. She filed with the Iowa Civil Rights Commission. She walks by me and makes snide remarks just about every day. I continue to keep my mouth shut. One day she really got to me, and I didn't tell her to shut up. I did tell her to shut up. There has been constant complaining about me. She has threatened me that she's going to file a lawsuit against me twice. She enlisted Sandy Pierce to get involved. One day, Michelle walked by me, brushed against me, and went to HR and said I shoved her so hard she had pain in her arm.
We're moving on, that we're moving forward. I mean, I get it, Michelle. I understand your side for what you're saying. You feel like you're threatened. But I thought we pulled Linda in, we pulled you in, everybody's been talked to, and we said enough's enough. We said we want to keep you all down there in the small store because we know if we separate you, put in different parts of the building, that's not really a good decision either. We
She needs her own little area.
Well, see, that's what she's going to say. She says, well, Michelle needs her own little area.
You talk to everybody I work with. You pull up every, yeah, you're right.
I have.
Okay, I would like you to pull up those people that I say are
Here's
witnesses
the
to her
Here's
hitting
the
me
thing.
and ask them.
Let's just talk about the most recent thing. You're mad about the parking situation out there, from what I understand, right?
A few days later, Sandy did the same thing. Every day since Michelle came back from leave, I've been dealt with demeaning remarks and snide comments as she walks by me. I'm at the point where I'm afraid to be anywhere near her for fear of what she's going to say or worse, complain that I did to her. Sandy Pierce is now getting involved again. She watches me every time I get on the secondary belt to retrieve a package. She went to supervisors to complain. She didn't think I had it secured on 2 occasions. So when I saw her watching me this time, I told her that in a calm voice that it was secured. She went and tattled to Denise that I yelled at her. It's been suggested to me that I transfer. If I do that, all these things these girls have been doing to me to get me fired or out of Smalls in the last 2 years has been worth their time. I understand from others that I am not the first one this has happened to. I want to know when it's going to stop. I want to file harassment against Michelle for constant remarks and lying about me to achieve her own results and threatening me that she's going to file a lawsuit against me twice, bullying. I want to file harassment against Sandy Pierce from constantly having me up in the office for petty things and lying to achieve her own end.
I don't know where she's hitting at, Michelle. I mean,
It doesn't matter.
It does, though.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, I'm
You guys
legitimately
didn't do anything to her for hitting me on the 29th.
the 29th.
September 29th, when she plowed into me, when she tried to knock me down. The girl that weighs 60 pounds more than me, half a foot taller than me.
She plowed right in the front of you.
Excuse me, you want me to show you an example?
Yeah.
Bear with her. You better hold on to her. You better, I swear, hold on to her.
We don't need to do this. Is this the injury?
Move to
that you
the side.
reported?
Yeah, move to the side just a little bit.
But is this the injury reported? We know what happened. It's on record. We have it. We know what happened.
What?
Michelle, I'll be honest. There was a lot of people interviewed, and
My 2 people that witnessed it, the only 2 people that witnessed it. A lot of people interviewed. Who else got interviewed?
well, that's like, well, Linda was asked. You were asked. Whoever you.
Linda
listed
lies.
Okay, but see, the interesting thing is, Michelle, it seems like your
How did I get
witnesses
fired?
always corroborate your story, and then Linda's is always the complete opposite. So how do you?
I'm sorry. I need
No,
you to get a
just-
copy.
I
No,
just don't-
there's no excuse for her. No, don't try to make
Nobody's making an
excuses.
excuse for
You
her.
are.
No, I'm not making an
Yeah,
excuse
you
for
are.
her. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I have a great work history, and every job I've ever worked, I have people that will vouch for me. I worked at the airport with no problems. I worked preload with no problems. Because of these 2 girls, my reputation at my workplace has been tarnished. I cannot talk to anyone in Smalls for fear it will be turned against me. I've always been proud to say I work for UPS. Now I dread coming to work knowing I might have trouble out of either one of them. I don't think I should be moved. I've done nothing wrong and done everything asked of me. I should have some kind of peace at the place where I work without worrying about what games somebody's going to play with my life. That's what it is. In addition, Michelle had filed a complaint against Linda Bates. As a result, a meeting was scheduled on January 14, 2014 with Michelle, Linda, the union business agent, the HR manager, the day sort manager, and me. The meeting was set up to put an end to the constant harassing that Michelle and Linda have had against each other. Michelle and Linda read the complaints against each other during this meeting. At that time, the company offered a unique solution to this problem. Both employees needed to agree to work different sorts, so would not be working with one another. Staying on the day sort was not an option. This would allow both employees to remain employed with final warnings for violations of the workplace violence anti-harassment policy. Because a mutual agreement could not be reached, Michelle and Linda were both terminated for continued violations of the policy. Panel members, as mentioned earlier, Michelle has been terminated before for violating the workplace violence anti-harassment policy. Exhibit number 5 is a copy of the company's case and documents that I'll leave for your review. And Exhibit 5 is the other packet there. It's got it, yeah. That's it right there. In summary, the company cannot and will not tolerate the constant harassment that occurs between Michelle and Linda. Michelle has had the policy reviewed on 3 different occasions and served a suspension for her involvement, yet she continues to violate the policy. Anyone else?
The only point that I would like to make was some conversation took place earlier on the date of knowledge. The date of knowledge is the date of the meeting because at that point in time we tried to resolve the issue. We came to the realization that these two, we couldn't find the solution, and they're both creating a hostile work environment according to their own perception against each other. At that point in time, to stay in compliance with the law, we had no option but to follow the policy and to terminate their employment. So we could not find a solution to that. So that is the reason behind that chain of events. I have two people that, in their own perception, I believe the other one's creating a hostile work environment against them. We try to resolve it. We try to be able to put the two on different swords because of the petty nature of how they work together. That was unable to be reached, and that was the reason for us moving forward on the termination.
Andrew, anything? Okay. Therefore, based on the facts presented, we ask the claim of the union be denied and the discharge upheld. We will hold the right to rebut.
Union presentation.
I have a quick 1-minute caucus with my grievance.
Yes. Executive session.
Thank you, panel. Matt Ballard presenting for the union. The grievance into the record. Filed by Michelle Mullica. On January 14th, 2014, I was unjustly terminated from my job at UPS. I was up for switching shift, not happy but willing. Linda wasn't willing, so we both are terminated. Remedy sought for contract violation to be made whole for all lost wages, benefits, and seniority, and for termination to be removed. Thank you for the caucus. I did have one error in my presentation, which I'll point out to you as I read through my brief. Michelle has been a UPS employee since September 18th, 1989. Michelle has gone out of her way to avoid conflict and altercations since being given a suspension by the company in July of last year. In doing this, Michelle feels she has been subjected to a hostile work environment that has affected her health and her ability to work at UPS and has had to take time off work due to this work environment. Michelle feels she has been antagonized by coworker Linda Bates and that this has been known and tolerated by the company without any effort to fix the situation. On Sunday, January 5th, 2014, Michelle pulled in to park her car in the parking lot. Both Michelle and Linda utilized the handicap parking stalls located near the guard shack at UPS Dixon facility, as do several other day sort employees. While she was still in her vehicle, Linda Bates pulled in next to her on the driver's side, extremely close to her, so that she could not properly exit the vehicle without contacting Linda's car. Rather than have any sort of physical contact, Michelle pulled her car out of the parking spot and moved her vehicle to the parking spots on the other side of the guard shack. There are more employees with handicap parking permits than there are parking spots on the day sort, so somebody must park here anyway. Michelle was later approached by, and this is where I have a correction, it wasn't security, it was Dan Kelly and Denise Reynolds, and told that she couldn't park there and would have to park somewhere else because Linda Bates had a problem with her moving her car. She informed security about what had happened and felt that Linda's actions were unnecessary and antagonistic. She talked to management about these actions, and on Tuesday, January 7th, she was asked to give a written statement about what had happened. She gave the written statement to the company on Wednesday, January 8th, 2014. On Tuesday, January 14th, both Linda and Michelle were pulled into a meeting along with myself, UPS Labor Manager Joe Brown, UPS Human Resources Manager Mike Arndt, and UPS Day Sort Manager Dan Kelly. At this meeting, both Michelle and Linda were told that the company was tired of dealing with them and their issues, and that they would be giving the option of each of them moving to different shifts because they could obviously no longer work together. Michelle stated that since she had the most seniority, that she would like to stay on the day shift. She was told that neither of them could remain on the day shift. Michelle then said that she would move to the preload shift in order to put all this behind her and keep the job that she needs. Linda then stated that since she was 100% innocent, she would not move to any different shift. We then took a caucus, and when the company came back in, Michelle informed the company that she was willing to move to the preload shift and that Linda could stay on the day shift as long as Linda wouldn't double shift on the preload so that she would not have to work with her at all. Linda then stated it was her right to double shift and they could not take that away from her and that they would have to fire her. The company then stated that either both of them moved or there was no deal. After Linda refused to move to a different shift, the company terminated both Michelle and Linda and took their ID badges and escorted them from the property, and neither has worked since. Michelle is a long-term employee who has not had problems with any other employees other than Linda Bates. At the meeting with the company, it was stated by the company that both of them have had multiple complaints against them by employees other than Michelle and Linda. I sent the company an information request to evaluate this statement and include that as Union Exhibit A. On Wednesday, January 22nd, the company provided 31 pages of documentation to fulfill the information request. In the documentation, there was no record of any complaint filed by any other employee of UPS against Michelle Mulligan. The statement the company made at the January 14th meeting was not true. And I'll read the letter for the information request. It says, "Dear Mr. Brown, during a meeting on Tuesday, January 14th, 2014, in which the above-named grievance were terminated, it was stated by the company that both grievance had multiple complaints filed against them by other UPS employees. Please provide all filed complaints that the company was referring to in their entirety and the status and resolution of each individually filed complaint. Please provide this to me no later than Wednesday, January 22nd, 2014. In all this, there are no other complaints against Michelle Mulligan. There is a complaint from Linda Bates on the July 25th incident that took place, which was a complaint from Linda Bates, and there were supporting statements from that from management officials, but there were no other complaints filed underneath the UPS policy against Michelle Mulligan. Not only has Michelle not had any problems with her coworkers, she was widely known as a good person who avoids conflicts and helps others resolve theirs. Michelle has statements from several people that attest to her character and moral values. Union Exhibits 1 through 14 are statements from personal acquaintances of Michelle, which I would like to read into the record at this time.
Which packet is that in?
It's in this one here.
Medical home agreement.
This one?
Yep.
Yep.
We call it packet D.
What do you call it?
This one's A. Call this one B. This one stays in. Okay.
First one from Sarah Craig. I have known Michelle Mulligan for approximately 10 years. My first impression was that she was very personable, caring, and helpful. My first impression remains to this day. I will add that I'm a 72-year-old female, which says that Michelle is comfortable with any age. I say any age because my observation comes from seeing her interact with her grandchildren from birth up to preteen in age. She often goes out of her way to help someone in need. She says what she means, and she means what she says, and I would trust her with any secret I might wish to tell her. My name is Sarah Craig, a resident of Des Moines, and I'm retired after working 20 years for the Iowa legislature. Next one, Exhibit 2. This is from a Connie Warden. I am a cousin by marriage to Michelle. I've known her for 30 years. When my one son was 7, Michelle came to my home and did a clown birthday for my son. Kinds love her. Michelle is a loving person. She and family was always for kids and I. My youngest was very sick his first year of life. Her mother was always for us helping. Sometimes money was tight for her husband and I at the time my kids were little, and Michelle would send used clothes that her daughter had worn to help us out. To say Michelle is mean or would go out of her way to hurt someone is bizarre. Not our Michelle. She would give you the shirt off her back. That is how her whole family is. Well, this is Michelle I know and love, Connie Warden. The next one from a Barb Miller, Union Exhibit 3.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Are you going to read every one of these?
that was our intention.
Let's have executive session.
Off the record? On the record.
To the union, we understand you have multiple documents, and we understand the significance of these documents. But what I would like to do, if there's a few of them you would like to read that you find that are more important than the others, we're going to read them all in executive session. But in order to not belabor this hearing, I would ask that if there's a few that you would like to read, I'm good with it. If not, then let us know if that's not going to be acceptable to you.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. 1 through 14, they're kind of separated here in order. 1 through 14 are from acquaintances,
Okay.
personal. Starting with statement 15 on are from co-workers, past and present.
Okay?
Some of these probably jump to the last few. What's that? Cameo?
Is that Exhibit 34? iCameo.
Yeah, that's what it is. Exhibit 34, I'd like to read that one. I, Cameo Rasmussen, first being newly sworn, state as follows. I've been at UPS for 16 years, never any problems until Linda arrived to our hub. Right from the start, she made work environment very angry. Her unsafe acts, such as not keeping our area workable, having to tiptoe around her and her anger issues, and were out of control. I've witnessed Linda ram into Becca Dank with a cart. Linda would throw stuff on the floor, throw packages, and verbally abuse employees, signed by Cameo Rasmussen. Read 35, Kelly Beach, to whom it may concern. I've worked at EPS for over 15 years. The Smalls area was fine until Linda Bates came from the airport. Almost everyone in Smalls has had a bad issue with her. Michelle has always been very easy to get along with. Linda has made Smalls a very stressful area. Kelly Beach. I want to read 33 too, and that'll be the last one I read. If it pleases the panel.
That's fine.
It says, to whom it may concern, this letter is in regard to Michelle Mullica. I've known Michelle on a personal and professional level since 1999. Michelle and I worked together at UPS from 1999 to 2002. I was a full-time supervisor with responsibilities on the twilight and day sort shifts, which Michelle worked on as a sorter and small sort employee. Professionally, I found Michelle to be a dependable and hardworking employee with a very positive attitude. Michelle would routinely assist other parts of the operation to help where needed and did so with a want-to attitude. In my professional opinion, Michelle took great pride in her daily duties and was someone I definitely wanted on my team. Perhaps what stood out most about Michelle was her kindness to her coworkers, especially those in need. An example of this would be Michelle helping our deaf employees at the time get set up and use the TTY. In my 14 years of knowing Michelle, I have never seen her become hostile, aggressive in any way, shape, or form towards another employee at UPS for any person outside of work. Michelle was an excellent employee for me, and I still consider her a friend today with impeccable character. Regards, Adrian Lynn. And these statements come from Michelle. She will send a letter to provide any statements in support of her case to the union by January 22nd, which was our local level hearing, so we could exchange them with the company. And as you can see, she came up with a quite sizable stack that all ring of the same sentiment towards her character and professionalism. I'll go back to the brief now on the last page. Since the suspension that Michelle served due to the July 2013 incident with Linda Bates, there have been further cases of abuse by Linda against Michelle and others. On September 29, 2013, Michelle was hit by Linda Bates in the workplace. She informed the company of this and that there were two other witnesses to the incident, Jerry O'Connor and Terry Klein. The company investigated this incident, and later Tara Velema met with Michelle and informed her that the two witness statements they received supported Michelle's version of the events, but since Linda's account was different, there was nothing the company would do. Michelle then filed a police complaint about this incident on October 24th, 2013. That I'll enter into the record. It was Union Exhibit 36. You can see it's 2 pages, 36-1 and 36-2. I'll read it at this time. The officer's statement down at the bottom. I met with Michelle at the station regarding assault which occurred on 29 September to employment at UPS. Michelle Mullica stated she had an ongoing problem with her coworker. They blacked out the name for freedom of information, but that is Linda Bates, who she states bullies her constantly, mentally and physically. Michelle has stated this problem has been going on for months and her employer is not taking action. Mullica stated on this particular day, Linda approached her and used her shoulder to push Mullica while she was working. Mullica stated there were 2 co-workers who witnessed the incident occur. Mullica stated that there were cameras in the work area, but her employers informed her they were off when the incident occurred. Mullica also stated she has been taking medication for anxiety since this problem with Bates. Go further up on that page, you can see the witnesses listed about a quarter of the way down: Terry Klein, Jerry O'Connor. And then at the back at the bottom, you can see that it's in an open investigation with the 2 check marks in the yes column. Was there a witness to the offense, and can the suspect either be named, located, identified, or identifiable description be provided? So it is an open police report with the city of Dominion. The company refused to take action on this verified incident, and as you will note in the Union Exhibit A, made no record of the complaint being filed and did not keep any written documentation from the incident. Michelle has gone out of her way and has proven that she will do whatever is necessary to keep her job at UPS, including switching shifts, so she no longer has to work with Linda Bates. Now Michelle sits before you terminated for moving her car on January 5th or for filing a complaint about a hostile work environment as required by company policy. We are not sure which one, but in any case, nothing Michelle has done justifies any discipline by the company. We ask the grievance be upheld, including but not limited to the lost pay, seniority, insurance, and pension contributions, and vacation hours credits, and furthermore that the company provide Michelle a safe working place, free of hostility and discrimination. We will rest with the right to rebut. Nope. Is there anything you want to add? Sorry. Would you like to fill the panel in on anything? Okay. Do rest with the right to rebut. My apologies.
Company.
Joe Brown, rebuttal for the company. Just a couple things. The union's first paragraph of their brief, it states, the last sentence, it says, Michelle feels she's been antagonized by coworker Linda Bates, and this has been known and tolerated by the company without any effort to fix the situation. Linda Bates has had the policy review with her 2 different occasions, and she's terminated also for her behavior with Michelle in the workplace.
I can also speak to that. We've had multiple meetings between Michelle and with Linda, including HR, trying to resolve this over the past 8-9 months, where we've had multiple meetings where we've tried to get these 2 folks together to resolve this. We've done everything as a company we felt we could to try to give them both a safe work environment, and we have not been successful to. So we have taken action to resolve that.
On the second page of the brief, it states in the middle, it says, as Matt talks about how the meeting went on January 14th, it says, we took a caucus, and when the company came back in, Michelle informed the company she was willing to move the preload shift, and that Linda could stay on the day shift as long as Linda would do double shift on the preload. Well, the issue there was that they came back and said that, but the situation was is they neither of them could work on the day shift. They needed to separate themselves completely and work on different shifts for this process to rectify itself. Further in the next paragraph, it states that there's no record of any complaint filed by any other employee of UPS against Michelle Mullica. The issue that we have here is that Michelle and Linda cannot get along, and it was evident in the meeting on January 14th that when we talked about these things that had come out, that they continued to argue and bicker about what was taking place, and they mentioned about lawsuits. And, I talked a lot about that in the beginning of the point of order conversation, but Linda is filing the complaints against Michelle, and Michelle is doing the same thing against her. It's these 2 people cannot work in this workplace. I want to talk about just a couple of rebuttals about the union exhibits 33, 34, and 35. And in all cases, and we went through these, each one at the local hearing that we had on January 22nd when this was brought to light. Adrian Lynn, who's exhibit number 33, is a supervisor who hasn't worked for UPS since 2002. He has no known knowledge of how this situation is at UPS. He has been with the company over 14 years. He's quoting what he knows Michelle outside of work, the issues that we're having right now and that we're dealing with is what happens inside of work. Camille Rasmussen, which is exhibit number 34. She talks, everything she says in here talks about what Linda Bates is doing as far as how she's involved, but there's nothing that supports Michelle, and it just says that she talks about what she saw Linda Bates do. This particular write-up doesn't really apply to Michelle's case, and 35 is the same way. It says, I've worked at UPS for over 15 years. The Smalls work area is fine until Linda came from the airport. Everyone in Smalls has a bad issue with her. It says, Michelle's always been easy to get along with. And that's from Kelly Beach. Again, these people are down there. He's not citing anything as far as these folks are not involved with what's going on with Michelle and Linda, and that is the basis for this termination, is that these two ladies just cannot act professional in the workplace whatsoever. And at the very last statement that the union asked for the grievance settlement to be, the last thing says, and furthermore, the company provided Michelle a safe workplace free of hostility and discrimination. We've worked very hard at doing that. We've had numerous policy reviews with Michelle, who's involved in this, and also the other instigator, Linda Bates, with meetings back on June 26th with the HR manager and leading up through numerous meetings with what took place with Michelle getting terminated on July 23rd and investigating. UPS doesn't want Michelle or anybody to have to deal with a unsafe workplace and a workplace that's got hostility and discrimination. It needs to stop. It needs to stop, and that's why we're here. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I think that's pretty much you got the gist of it.
Okay. All right, that's our case.
Union?
Well, thank you, panel. I'd like to go to Company Exhibit 4. On this, I want to clarify. On the second page of this statement, there's a statement about Sandy Pierce in the bottom paragraph. She enlisted Sandy Pierce to get involved. Just to clarify that, Sandy Pierce, just from other knowledge I have, had issues with Linda Bates, went to HR manager Mike Arndt to make a complaint. She also had several incidents from other employees that were relaying her concerns through Sandy Pierce. Mike told Sandy that he would not entertain complaints coming secondhand. If they had complaints they wanted to make, that they would need to come forward in person to make those complaints. Sandy went back to the workplace to inform those employees, hey, don't tell me, you need to go tell Mike Arndt. If you've got a complaint to make, go directly to him. Sandy was then told by Dan Kelly that she's not to be soliciting people to make complaints, and threatened if she had any further action that way that she would be terminated. So that's where the Sandy Pierce role comes in. She's following up on directives from Mike Arndt. And the bulk of this statement from Linda Bates is nothing new. It goes to a lot of events from last July that have already been before this panel once before. Anything you would like to say about the company's case?
I'd like to address Dan Kelly down there when.
Address the panel, but you can address what he said in
This is
the
in
company
regards to
case.
Dan Kelly. In I believe it was April, May, I went up to the man because this woman was hitting me with things, and I asked him if he could please do something about it. Words out of his mouth were, I was stupid and I was petty, and I could get fired over it. So I've had that experience with Dan Kelly before. I'm in fear of my job, so I go to Mike Arndt, and I want help from Mike Arndt, and Mike Arndt did try to get me some help. We went up to a meeting that actually didn't go anywhere at all. This is prior to me being fired. And I was told there was going to be cameras, and I felt safe. All of a sudden, I finally felt safe. Somebody's going to see this happen. Well, in July, she hit me, but the cameras weren't on. So
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Saw that.
None of that was in my presentation as far as the camera issue that she's referring to.
What are you rebutting?
Need to rebut something that they had in their actual case.
What did he say that you're rebutting?
I didn't have cameras, I suppose.
Okay, that wasn't in their case.
Was it in firefighting?
No, we're just talking about this one here.
Okay.
So anything in this case here, we can rebut.
You have to
Okay,
stick
just
with,
the
you have to
first
stick
thing where
with,
he said he
you have to
tries to-
stick with what they said in their presentation, not what they said in their rebuttal.
he said
There's
he-
two different types.
All right, I understand that. He tried to make me safe. I don't feel that he tried to make me safe at all. I think I got brushed off. He actually told me the other day that I should just blow this all off. So, no, he's not.
And who said this to you,
Dan
Dan
Kelly.
Kelly?
I don't believe he's trying to make me safe.
Okay.
Anything else?
Dan, you may not realize this. She's very mean.
I understand that. What I would like you to do is I'd like you to first just get your composure. I'd like you to write a statement to me, put it on paper, that you feel that she is creating a hostile work environment against you and she is harassing you. And it's my obligation to provide a safe work environment for everybody, and it's obvious. And yeah, I'll tell you where I'm at, Michelle. I personally, you know, this shit she's doing, if it was me, I would just blow it off. I understand that. I can tell by looking at you right now where you're at with this. I don't think that you're. I understand you're agitated. I understand you're nervous. I understand there's a lot of things going on.
It's just crazy. I mean,
Okay.
she's doing it just to antagonize me. She's trying to.
I think that might be, Michelle, between you and I think that's probably a valid point. I think she is trying to. I don't know why.
She's trying to make me flip my lid, so I yell at her again. You fire me again. That's all she's trying to do.
I think she's trying to do some agitating there. So I would agree.
Anybody's case?
I don't think so. I don't know what to say.
Okay. I believe our case stands for itself, and the union will rest.
Questions to the committee? Clear up something for me, Matt. Who is, Mike Arndt is an HR guy?
Correct.
Did he solicit Sandy Pierce to do something?
Sandy Pierce went to him with a complaint,
Okay,
and then he told her she was bringing forward what other people were telling her, and he
and
told
not to
her
do that,
you
to
need
bring
get
other people
other people to
one
come
by
up here
one
direct.
in their own way.
Yes.
Okay. Sandy Arndt or Sandy Pierce is a regular employee at UPS?
Yes, she is.
She never is.
Okay. Company, so I understand the reasons for your termination. Is it the cumulative actions caused this, not just one particular incident, correct? Why you terminated him on the 14th,
Yes, sir, and what took place during the 14th.
and what went on
It
during
was,
that
it was,
meeting?
as we were asking them questions, they both got a chance to read each other's write-ups about each other. And then as we talked to each of them, and they're both in the room at the same time, as the one started, if Linda started to talk, Michelle continually interrupted her. If Michelle started to talk, Linda would shout across the table. At that point, those two in the room couldn't even come to an agreement about what took place. They both called each other liars. And it was obvious at that point, Mr. Chairman, that as structured as this meeting was going to be, those two just could not get along even in that environment.
Okay. I want to ask you, the union put on the record that you made comments of complaints against the person that's before us today, and that you weren't able to bring anything in writing. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Can you tell me why you would do that and then not be able to back it up?
look, I'd like to flesh it out a little bit. When we said that there was other complaints, the complaints that were coming across, and Dan can speak to a little bit of it, but what we had and what we were dealing with was what Linda was complaining about Michelle. And that's what the complaints we were dealing with
I
at that particular
understand. My
time.
question is other complaints besides Linda.
There are complaints that are made on the floor about employees. They aren't all documented. Somebody could complain to me about another employee. I listen to that, I address it. The complaint's made, but it's not.
You don't
formally
document anything?
I would not document something that would be as petty as she was looking at my paycheck, or she was at the time clock before me, or she took my cart that I was going to use first, or she took my mat. Those type of events I did not document. I tried to resolve that as I would with any two rational human beings.
Well, if you can't document, why say it then?
I didn't document it,
All right.
so.
Did you tell her she was stupid and petty?
I believe there was a complaint one time about somebody's lunchbox almost touching them as they walked by. Some of the complaints I did feel were very small, and I did communicate that to Michelle. I said, Michelle, these complaints that keep getting brought up, you know, she parked in my parking spot, she took my card, she's in my work area looking at me, tell her not to talk to me.
Okay, my question to you was, did you tell her that these complaints were stupid and petty?
I believe, tell her that they were small. They were very small and petty, that we probably need to get by that. Yes, I would have made a statement along those lines. That's accurate.
Okay. That's all I got. Do you have anything you want to ask?
Just one question. Back in this parking lot issue in the 5th, management come out and told you you couldn't park where you were parked.
I went into work, and as I was working, Dan and Denise approached me to let me know that
What was wrong with where you were parked?
I don't know. I have no clue.
You asked management, why'd she have to move her car?
Yes, I did speak to her that day in question. What had happened is Linda Bates came in and told me that she had parked next to her, she tore out, and what she had done is she had went inside the gate. Inside the gate is a secured area. The handicap parking is outside the gate. I did not tell her she couldn't park there. I believe security told her that she needed to move her car, that she couldn't park inside the gate. I did communicate to her on that day in question with Denise what Linda had told me. Linda said, she's going to blow up on me today. Please tell her not to talk to me. And I went down and I made the statement, please, you know, you and Linda, just do your work today. Don't violate each other's space. Just stay to yourself. She's going to do the same. So don't talk to each other. Don't communicate with each other. Let's just do our job and go home. But that was the reason that she was told she had to move her car. She was inside the gate, and we have handicap parking outside the gate, and she pulled it inside the gate because she didn't want to park next to Linda or whatever the case was.
But Linda brought that to your attention when
Linda
she was
brought it
parked.
to my attention, yes. I had no
Okay, that's
idea.
all. I just want to know who brought it to your attention.
Coming inside, what do you mean? If they're
Parking right there.
our procedures, if those spots are full, are they parking inside?
All right, I'll just park next to her. It's okay. They will have to if there's no spots over there.
These aren't handicap parking.
No, but when the spots are full, there's not enough spots over there for everybody who works here.
Correct, and that's what Jeremy was asking that yesterday. I said, Jeremy, we have an obligation for folks that are handicapped that need to.
You have an obligation to protect me too.
Okay, thanks.
Got a question of the company. Reading through some of these statements in here, do you have a bunch of new supervisors where Ms. Michelle and Linda work that came from the airport?
No, I have no supervisors right now that, I take that back. I have supervisors that came from the airport, but they are not in that area. They're in the primary.
So those supervisors aren't over Michelle?
The supervisors that are over Michelle are supervisors that started at the Dixon facility and have spent their whole career there, yes.
Question, Michelle, is that correct?
Denise Reynolds is my immediate supervisor.
Is she from the airport or she's always been in,
She started working maybe 8 years ago or so, something like that.
so she didn't
So
come
she's
from
not-
the airport? Okay.
Crystal Cooper works with Dan.
Is that it, Karen?
Yeah.
That's all I have about the airport. Oh, I got a couple. Michelle, you know what this is right here?
I can't see. The policy on the, yeah, I've been showing that a considerable amount of times in the last 6, 7
Well, help
months.
me understand why you put RTS or you refuse to sign.
Well,
Why
I've
would you
seen
sign
so
it?
many of them, and I think it's just like they were just piling up in front of me in the last 10 months, and I think it's like sabotage. So after a while, I get tired of those being thrown in my face
Okay, but
when it's not me.
You understand it.
Yes, I don't harass people.
Okay, well now, and I want to talk a little bit about, what you feel is going on with you. And I'm going to read a couple of these. As far as verbal, and this is part of this policy, derogatory slurs, remarks, threats or suggestive insults or sounds. Is this, and this, what's the other
She
girl's name?
says I do that. I do not. If anything,
Okay.
I've offered her
Well,
cookie
does
or
she
a
do
piece
that
of
to
candy.
you? Does she do that
No,
to you?
not really. Just physical
Okay.
instead.
Okay, now here's the nonverbal section, and I'm just going to read a couple of them. Leering of obscure gestures, obscene gestures, physical is unwanted contact, touching, interfering with an individual's normal work movement. Is your complaint against her that these things are happening?
Those things are happening to me.
And her complaint against you is you're doing these things to her? That's what she's saying?
I don't know what she's saying. I have
Oh,
not
okay.
seen any complaint other than me moving my car. That's the only one
Okay,
I've
well, I
ever
thought on the 14th you all discussed
seen. Reading?
what she was saying about you, what you were saying about her, and you guys got upset, and that didn't happen?
No, I read her paperwork,
Okay.
and she read my paperwork. She said mine were all lies, and hers seemed like it was a lot of just what happened in July.
What do you want the company to do with you two? I mean, because you're not in high school anymore.
You know, I know, and I've been there 25 years, and
And I understand that.
had this moment when I was just one of the proudest people to work there.
Hold on. What do you want this company to do? Because if you were running your own business, you wouldn't want to have to come in and deal with this all every day,
Sure,
would you?
I personally think I'm being sabotaged. I'm not gonna, that's how I feel.
Okay. Matt, and I don't want to put you on the spot, and if you can't answer this question, then just tell me so. Do you have any suggestions of the resolution of these two?
When we
Because
had
I think you know where it's going to end up if you can't come to one.
when we had the meeting on the 14th, I had talked with the company. I encouraged both employees to accept the moving to another sort and not working with each other. I did work with the company to try to get both employees to endorse that solution because that was probably, in my opinion, the only solution that's going to work. Ultimately, you see the results of it did not happen, but I believe it was a viable solution put forward by the company.
And I guess my last question, and I'm actually going to direct it to you, Dan, is your position that you feel you have to do something with these two ladies because?
According to Iowa
Where's it
law,
gonna-
according to Iowa law.
Well, you've said that. I wasn't going to get into that, but explain that to us. What I know what you're talking about.
A copy of the law was provided to me by one of the employees in the area, and it's perceived.
One of these two? Or is it a
They're
different employee?
a different one.
Okay.
Okay, and it's the law states that it's, harassment is my perception, okay? And we've been trying to resolve this again for the past 8-9 months, whatever it's been. And Michelle's perception is that Linda is creating a hostile, harassing work environment. That's her perception, so I have an obligation as an employer to correct that.
Okay.
Okay, Linda's perception is that Michelle is creating the same hostile, negative work environment. As an employer, I'm bound to correct that. And so we've done everything we can with HR, we've tried to resolve it, we've tried to move forward on it. The only thing I can do to stay in compliance and to try to resolve this would be if they can't take the resolution we try to put before them, then to stay in compliance, they would both have to go.
That's what we're here today?
Yes.
That's all we got.
And I've got a question for you. You've seen the statement written by Linda, correct?
Yes.
You guys presented the statement, correct?
Correct.
I don't see anything in that statement that talks about anything that happened in January, correct?
I believe in the statement she's speaking to an ongoing.
Everything that's already been hashed out.
I guess I don't know if she brings up the car in there. The car incident was in early January. I guess that would be.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer that question,
Yes.
please? Yeah, you are correct, because this statement was written before the January 14th meeting. So when we were in the January 14th meeting, as we allowed both of the grievance to
There's-
look at it,
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe that both parties are, and again, we're only here to hear Michelle's case, but we're talking about two people that can't get along. Do you believe that both parties have their own culpability here?
I believe, yes, they both have ownership in it.
You done now?
Yeah.
I got one question. You received all of these from the union, correct?
Yes.
The statements, would you look at Union Exhibit 31?
Okay.
States in here, and this kind of goes back to that question I asked earlier. When our new management took over around March of 2013, because new management and Linda knew each other from the airport, Linda made a comment to myself and another coworker that it was her turn to be a bitch and get even with our coworkers. While that comment, or a while after that comment, Linda Bates quit speaking to myself and another person. So, I guess answer my question again. Was management from the airport brought into this area?
Crystal Cooper, and I can interpret this statement. Crystal Cooper was a full-time supervisor at the airport, and her and Kevin Whitehill switched positions. Kevin was on the day sort. Kevin went out to the airport. Crystal came into the day sort. I believe this is what this statement is referring to, because that's when this move took place. Now, as far as and Crystal Cooper works with Dan. I can't validate what this person said. I just had to take it for what she said, that she heard this person say something.
I would assume that'd be accurate, because I think that was the only change that took place around the time frame. She's my full-time coordinator that takes care of the outbound, so she would not directly be over Smalls, although she probably does interact in Smalls. I've never had any complaints on Crystal from any hourly employees as far as any type of favoritism.
Her and Linda did work together out there.
She did work, and prior to that she worked at the hub, so she was in the hub, went to the airport, had done HR, had multiple assignments, but was familiar with both work groups.
Okay. That's all.
Any further questions? Hearing none, Michelle, I have two for you. Have you had the opportunity to present everything you'd like to tell us today? Is there anything else you want to tell us before we close that you haven't been able to get out?
It's stressful. I hate it. I did like my job at one time, and I feel like that I'm being totally ignored in the last almost year. I don't know what to say. I always thought I was a good employee. I thought I was working hard. I thought I was valuable, but I don't see it anymore. I see that any issue I ever have is just gone by the wayside, and other people have more important things than me anymore. I don't know what to say. I'm just here trying to save myself.
Okay, have you now had the opportunity to say everything you want to say?
I'm not the mean, hostile harasser that they're trying to make me out to be.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
Has Matt Ballard and Local 90 represented you properly today?
Yeah.
Excuse the parties.
On the record.
Okay, we're back on the record in case one. What we're going to do is hear the other case and hold the decision in abeyance. So we're going to hear the facts of the other case before we render our decision in case one.
Okay.
Okay, so we're ready to hear the next case.
Would you like Michelle to remain here on property for the night, or?
I mean, she can, if she'd like to, she can go.
I'd much rather go home.
Okay.
I'll wait it out. I've been waiting a long time.
I think at this point and how late these proceedings are going to go, I think that you'll have to communicate the decision tomorrow with both parties.
Okay, we can
Okay.
do that.
Okay. So we're going to hear the next case. I assume late case number.
Off the record? On the record?
Let's go on the record in cases number 1 and number 2. Would you please read those decisions into the record, please?
Case number 1, based on the facts presented. In this instant case, determination shall be reduced to an unpaid suspension.
Thank you.
The grievance shall return to work February 3rd, 2014. The grievance shall be reassigned to the Dixon twilight sort with her extra work opportunity on the midnight sort. Case 2, based on the facts presented. In this instant case, the termination shall be reduced to an all-time served suspension. The grievance shall return to work February 3rd, 2014. The grievance shall be reassigned to the Dixon preload sort with her extra work opportunity on the day sort. Off the record.
Two sides of the story, like the case said.
Nobody ever asked anybody on my side anything. Nobody asked the girls or guys down there, is she following Michelle around? Is she hitting Michelle? Is she walking into Michelle? Is she throwing things at Michelle? Is she intimidating Michelle? Nobody ever asked anybody I work with that. I had no witnesses when it came to being fired. I had no defense.